The campaign for the presidential elections of 20 May 2020 will start this Monday, 27 April 2020. Nothing and no one will have succeeded in bending the stubbornness and irresponsibility of the government of Burundi. All those, including Burundians, friends of Burundi, and independent observers, who have denounced the current conditions that do not meet the requirements for free, transparent, inclusive elections, worthy of a democratic regime, and today the spread of the coronavirus pandemic, which is a real threat to public health, will have been only the voice crying in the desert. There was no shortage of arguments to support the contrary. Peace and security have never been so assured throughout the country. The respect of the word given for the respect of terms, the establishment of independent bodies in charge of elections, and the financing of these elections without external assistance, the fear of a constitutional vacuum in the event of postponement of the elections, the absence of threat of the coronavirus or at least its control if it were to occur, and finally the responsibility of a sovereign government which cannot listen to its opponents and detractors who are thirsty or nostalgic for power and their neo-colonial allies. All these arguments do not stand up to the reality on the ground, to our past experience in institutional crisis management, but rather respond to the interests of some people to the detriment of the general interest and the nation. Thus, against all odds, the machine has turned and a so-called normal, ordinary election campaign, like all those that preceded it, begins today. An ordinary campaign with a particular singularity, the multiplicity of candidates. We weren't used to such an interest. Could we talk about commitment? The office has never been that much desired. An ordinary campaign that will also take place against the backdrop of disintegration, defections, alliances, and other cries of outrage of victims of reverses of situations within political parties resulting from political manipulations and calculations. Indeed, the cake will soon be served and all the guests would like to take part in the feast and taste the cake, whatever the portion. Finally, an ordinary campaign because the majority of Burundi do not expect any miracle. Indeed, some will knowingly address the militants, preach to the new converts, and promise us paradise from which one would not be far away otherwise. Others will revisit and update grandiose and finished projects, while others will remake the world for us. Beautiful promises that will commit only us, to whom they will be made. As in every campaign, we will be treated to a succulent monologue on future performances and nothing on the promises of the mandate that is coming to an end. As always, the Mass will be said quickly and happy will be those who do not bring the COVID-19 back to their homes from these gatherings, hotbeds of large spread. An ordinary presidential campaign, but a test campaign for those who, unlike many others, including the MFFPS, accepted these elections and decided to participate. A campaign that will be for them an opportunity to observe and evaluate its progress in compliance with all the regulations governing the campaign as it was established. Have instructions been issued and measures taken to make sure that the authorities at all levels, the police and security services, the Imbonerakure militia, and the bodies responsible for supervising the campaign ensure the observance of the said regulations? Will they take part in the peaceful campaign indicating a change in the climate prevailing on the eve of the campaign, where the political opponents were threatened, hunted, kidnapped, tortured, arbitrarily detained, and summarily executed? Will they see all the candidates and their constituencies enjoying, and to the same degree, their freedom of expression, movement, assembly? These are some of the indications on which Burundians and the entire international community will judge the ability of the authorities to play fair. The Women and Girls Movement for Peace and Security in Burundi would like to appeal once again to the wisdom and responsibility of Barundi and Barundikazi who are engaged in this electoral process. During this last term, to speak only about this one, you have seen, experienced as witnesses or victims, situations that contrast with the speeches that you will hear during these 3 weeks. Know how to weigh things up and identify your interests, just like those who will ask you to serve theirs. We also know from the past experience that election campaigns are usually periods of high tension, verbal and even physical violence between activists. Once the elections are over, we remain friends and neighbors who cannot do without each other. Let us therefore avoid all forms of violence and preserve peace and security in our community at all costs. Finally, the MFFPS recalls that coronavirus is within our walls and deplores the fact that the authorities have chosen, despite one death and an unknown but growing number of sick people, to sacrifice the health of citizens at the altar of the elections. If, for one reason or another, you could not avoid participating in the rallies, try to respect as much as possible the protective measures taken by the health authorities. This is a message from the Women and Girls Movement for Peace and Security in Burundi, MFFPS.